Welcome to this YouTrain introductory video. My name is Sérgio and I work as a trainer. In this video I will explore with you what is experiential learning and one of the key elements of it, which is the debriefing. Experiential learning, as the name self-explanatory says, it's about learning by experience rather than just studying or researching or seeing or listening. So it's all about learning by doing it. In non-formal education settings, we really encourage to use this kind of approach or model because it's really going to tackle a lot of different ways of learning, since reading and listening, since experimenting and feeling, analyzing and reflecting and even applying. To help us, these trainers, on how to design an educational activity, we follow the model of David Kolb learning cycle, which is based on experiential learning, and it's a very well-known model to use on education. David Kolb, which was the creator of the Kolb cycle, divided in 4 different steps that we use on this model. First step is experience. Basically, as an example, in a training activity can happen during one session, that you are experiencing something during that session. Second step, reflection. That in a training activity can happen, for example, during reflection groups, self-assessment, or even in a briefing stage, when then you are reflecting a little bit on what happened during the experience. The third step is generalization. Basically, you're going to try to connect what happened and your reflection with other models and theories that already exist and to try to understand how this has a bigger picture. The fourth step is application. Then you're going to try to understand everything that happened, reflect on everything that happened, and how can you now pass that to your real life and use it on your real life. During a training activity, you can be done, for example, with planning follow-up or making a personal action plan. David Kolb says that these 4 steps are part of integration on a learning process, so it's very important to use them all. It may happen that you find different names for these 4 steps, according to the model adaptation that you may find online. Now let's look at the experiential learning in a training context. So there's different dimensions on that. The first one is the whole training as an experience of learning itself, where we follow the steps 1, 2 and 3, and we have daily evaluations and reflection groups. The step 4 is when the participants go back home and then they're going to implement what they learned and they apply it. The step 4 can also happen during the training itself, when we have a session about follow-up plan or making the personal action plan. Second dimension is the structured experience, where we can pick up on real-life stories as an example and experience and build on that. And for that, then we're going to use the debriefing method, which can become a very impactful learning outcome. The third dimension is spontaneous situations that may happen during the training. For example, if there's a conflict between participants, you can use this and make a debriefing and reflection and use it as a learning outcome instead of just letting pass. So knowing about all these dimensions, let's stay a little bit on the debriefing. It's one of the most challenging parts for the trainers. However, it's one of the most important also. In non-formal education, we have a lot of fun and enjoyable activities, but it's very important to focus on the debriefing because it can be the key to extract the main learning outcomes. It can have the greatest impact on the training. Plan it in advance and implement the part of the debriefing. What is a debriefing? A debriefing is a guided reflection made by the trainer in the end of the experience. Usually it's made by questions that the trainer makes to the participants in order for them to reflect on what they just experienced, in what attitudes and behaviors they had, and with this extract main key values that can change also their future behaviors and attitudes and real life experience. We are lucky that Kolb cycle also supports us on the debriefing. So imagine that in a training context, you just finalize one session, you completed step 1 of the Kolb cycle. So now we go to the debriefing, where you sit with the participants in a circle and we start with the step 2, reflection. And in this part, it's very important for the participants to take out all the thoughts, feelings, actions, reactions that happened during the experience. As a trainer, you can start the debriefing with questions as, how did you feel during the activity? How do you feel right now? What happened? What were the facts? And so on. And we continue with the debriefing, going to the step 3, generalization. And in here you can make questions, for example, as what are the learning outcomes of this experience? Which associations do you make between this experience and other models and concepts that you know? And we move on then for the step 4, application, which is basically taking from what happened during the experience to the real life. And for that you can make questions like, how are you going to apply your learning outcomes on your life? What are you going to extract from here and implement on your work? These questions are just general and to try to help you, but you can create your own and try to be as specific as possible. Remember that debriefing can create a great impact, so dig deep. We are almost in the end of this video, so I would like to leave you with 3 tips that I follow when I make the debriefing. First tip, have a structure and present it to the participants in the beginning to make them more comfortable. So in this way they know what is the plan of the debriefing and they're going to be allowed to express themselves in a better way. So try to stick to the plan, and even if you need to change something, please follow the structure that you planned initially. The second tip is to allow the participants to vent, to express their emotions and feelings. So start the debriefing with that. Even that the situation was not real, like a simulation exercise or a role play exercise, the feelings are very real. So allow them to vent and also to be able to express even the feelings that are not so pleasant, like anger, frustration, upset, and so on. So take your time to allow that all this vent happens in the beginning of the debriefing. The third and final tip that I will leave you is about the time. Be aware that the debriefing takes a long time to make it, between 30 minutes to 1 hour, and it can be even more depending on the exercise and depending on how deep you want to go with the debriefing. Ensure also that all the participants can express their voice and opinions, so take your time and allow also the silence to happen. It takes some time to reflect and to analyze what happened and to be able to express, so don't be afraid of it, the opposite. Really let the silence happen during the debriefing. Okay, so now we saw what is experiential learning and debriefing. You can find more details and information on the description box below, and please experiment and practice doing the Kolb cycle and debriefing. Try out, implement it, and practice. Thank you for watching.
YouTrain is co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. For more videos on non-formal education, please check out our channel and subscribe.